That's how we do it. That's how we do it. Yeah. Yo. Yo. That's how we do it.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to a special Tuesday dev stream. We got a couple things to talk about today, but before we get started, I just want to say thank you to Playoff Beard. As some of you guys may know, Playoff Beard will be leaving Super Evil, but we can't forget all that he has done for us. He has been a fundamental part of this company, and just starting from the beginning. I remember the first day I came to Super Evil. He was there. He had some strong opinions. He had some strong words with me, but he has made quite the impression.
I'm actually sitting here today because of him,
Yeah.
and thank you, Playoff, for all you've done.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people that are at this company today were because of Playoff Beard. Adiendris, Fuji, yourself.
Shin.
It's been a Shin. It's been a blast. It's been a blast. So
Yeah.
thank you, Playoff Beard. Good luck with what you have coming next, and stay in touch. But moving on from that, we have quite a few things to talk about. We want to go over a couple balance changes, what happens in 3.1. We're going to be playing a couple, maybe one or two viewer games. So if you want to play a match, add Vainglory, and you might get invited to the party.
Spelled like that,
Yeah, what he said.
but without the
But
5v5.
nor with all the caps. So capital
Oh.
V, lowercase everything else.
Yes.
So
like this.
that's
but
not quite right.
okay, fine.
But spelled like that. But in any case, we're also going to be having Surprise Birthday come on and talk a little about, a couple of the matchmaking issues that went on over the past week, and hopefully clear up some of the issues or some of the concerns that you may have. If you have any questions, when he comes on, feel free to post them into chat, and we'll do our best to answer them. So for now, we're going to be getting a game going on pretty soon. So as soon as we get a party going, we're going to have a game rolling. So it should be pretty exciting. And during that time, Nivmet is going to be talking about all of these live balance changes that are in 3.1. So starting things off, I mean, a couple of these, I feel like I might know a little bit more just because I added them.
You're the one who, so for the 5v5 meta ones, I believe, you're the one who spearheaded the majority of these, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about this Black Claw change that you've made.
All right, so Black Claw's might. So every time you capture Black Claw, the neutral version of it, not when you kill him after he gets captured, you gain 10% maximum health regen and 10% energy recharge per second for 5 seconds. And this is so that when you capture Black Claw, a lot of times in 3.0, players would capture Black Claw, teams would capture Black Claw, and then they would have to back, which meant that Black Claw immediately got killed, which wasn't the greatest thing ever.
Damage to really continue.
Right. So this really means that if you do capture Black Claw, you will be able to push alongside him. Or if you do steal Black Claw from a team that's capturing him, you will be able to do quite a turnaround because one, they took a lot of damage. You're now fully healed, and now you can just go wreck them.
And also, I like that it creates a shared feeling with the Kraken's might buff, if you may, where if you take Kraken in 3v3, you heal. So there's definitely you can see the strong tie between the two bosses of each map.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is quite an analog between the two maps now. Both major objectives on these two maps, on the House Unfold, on Sovereign's Rise, will give you the extra regeneration upon capture. But next up is lane minions. They spawn a little bit earlier, so lane minions now spawning at 30 seconds instead of 45. This means that junglers will probably have their jungle taking a little bit less, and laners have to get to lane just a bit sooner. There are a couple strategies around getting to lane really early on and just shoving it very quickly. And it's not that we don't want people, going into the jungle and taking away some of the jungle monsters when the jungler isn't able to get to them. But having your entire jungle taken away every single game is a little bit rough. And we will continue monitoring this and making adjustments as necessary. The movement speed change for main minions isn't too big. It just makes them walk just a little bit faster. So every time you are trying to push up to a turret, they'll get there just a little bit sooner.
Yeah. So with this change, essentially, junglers will have more of their jungle to take since in 3.0 you had the laners pretty much taking, 4 out of 6 camps.
Yeah, it was kind of rough. It was kind of rough.
So now the junglers will have hopefully a little bit more. We've also, I believe, increased the experience that they give now.
Absolutely.
So junglers should, after 2 camps, even if you have 1 ally helping you, should hit level 2 after that second camp. Right?
Yeah, and one of the big things is the treant camps near the lanes. Both the healing treant camps do give a little bit less experience. This means that a laner who is dominant won't just constantly rotate into the jungle, heal up a little bit, get a huge amount of experience, and then come back to lane. So it will give them just a little bit less of a lead. But if you are able to pressure your opponents, it is still a very good way to get ahead.
And so we move that experience into the back jungle.
Absolutely.
So the jungler will get it, and the laner doesn't snowball out of control.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, that's a really great change.
Yeah, we've also made a couple of changes to gold generation in the lane. So range minions, siege minions, captain minions all give a little bit different gold, a little bit less. Overall, probably a net like 15 gold, 10 gold difference per wave, which isn't huge, but this is also something we will continue to monitor. The main thing was we wanted to avoid situations where a single laner would just get absolutely out of control by either split pushing or just being way too dominant.
It was too much good. It's too much of a great strategy just to stay in the lane, right?
Right.
If you left your lane, you felt you were punished by missing all that gold. Like so, So this created a lack of team fighting. We're hoping by pulling the amount of gold there that if you leave lane, you're not going to be as punished. So you're better off rotating a bit to help your other lanes.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's one of the really big things. We want to make sure that you are, trying to work together as a team. Yes, there are games where doing that solo lone wolf is very effective, but not every time.
Agreed.
All right, we also made some changes to Vein Crystal, so it regenerates a little bit faster. I mean, I think this one's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah. So not only does this match better to the Halcyon Fold, but it also means that if it takes much shorter amount of time to regenerate, which means if they teleport boots in, it's not going to just be like, oh, look at that, it was still at a quarter life because it was low.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So that's, I think, a really great change.
Yeah, it looks like we are into a game now, so we're going to just continue talking about balance changes during this match. So enjoy the game while we have a little bit of a chat. So turrets. Now the early game protection actually has some visuals associated to it, so you'll know.
Super cool. I love the visuals.
Especially when you have a bunch of minions beating on it, you just see like this thing flashing over and
over.
Yeah,
it's just like, this is protected.
Yep. It's quite awesome. But the early game protection timeout has decreased from 6 minutes to 4 minutes. 6 minutes was just a little bit too long. We wanted to make sure that turrets weren't falling super quickly. If you have a strategy around it, you can absolutely take a turret down very quickly. That being said, if you lose a turret at like 2 minutes, that's a little bit brutal.
That's rough.
So we made sure to tune that back just a little bit. And then finally, armories. Losing an armory now only makes enemy minions take 10% less damage from heroes instead of 20%. 20% made them just a little bit too tanky. They're extremely hard to kill.
They were really hard to kill. Okay, so now we're going to pull in some heroes balance.
Yeah, so let's take a look at the heroes we have in the game first. So Alpha, right off the bat.
Yeah.
Tell me a little about Alpha.
So Alpha is really strong, but one of the problems, she's supposed to deal a decent amount of damage, and she's supposed to stick to, the carry.
Right.
But she was just a little bit too durable, and she would heal too much. She would also, if you beat on her while she was trying to reboot, she would reboot and she had at least 50% of her life, and this was sort of frustrating.
Absolutely.
So what we did is essentially made it so if you're at 1 HP on a rebooting Alpha, you'll respawn with 40 life. This means that damage that you put on her while she's rebooting will stick a little bit better.
Right.
So this is gonna make it so if Alpha does reboot, she's not quite as healthy and durable. Her life gain that she has on her B is also down, so she's gonna heal a little bit less.
Just a little bit less.
Yes, and she's gonna have less HP.
Yeah. I mean, you might look at the numbers and be like, hey, it's only 1 health down, but you get 3 stacks, so about three health per hit, which it does add up, especially because he does attack fairly quickly.
It does.
All right, we do have an Arden in the game too, and he's received a couple changes. Tell me a little about these.
So we wanted to increase support damage across the board.
Right.
5v5, right?
Okay. I think just in general, having some captains and supports doing a little bit more damage made you feel a little bit more impactful. So every time your abilities are up, your opponents do have to fear you a little bit more.
Exactly. So in this situation, Arden's blood for blood damage was raised a bit, but we didn't want his CP and weapon path to go out of control.
Absolutely.
So weapon, we didn't really have to worry about it. It hasn't seen so much play yet, but there has been a lot of, crystal Arden that's surfaced up. So we reduced the crystal ratio on his blood for blood, but essentially if you are the standard crystal Arden build, aftershock, etc. build, you will find that your damage is relatively the same, if not slightly higher.
Okay.
So
seems good.
Just overall, nice shift change.
Sounds good to me. I always like buff Arden. But in any case, do we have a Catherine in this game? We do not. But we can talk a little about her anyway. So
sure.
Catherine, her Storm Guard, the cooldown has been increased, and I feel that this is probably one of the more frustrating abilities to deal with.
Yes.
On almost any of our heroes.
It is. So this ability literally just makes makes her 9 indestructible for the duration of her bubble.
Right.
So one of the builds that have been coming around for Catherine and is for the most part her consistent build is this cooldown build where you go like Storm Crown, Aftershock, Clockwork, and you tank up and you just your bubble is up every like few seconds.
Okay.
When it goes down, and then on top of that you're stunned for 1.2 seconds, so you really only have like a second to kill her before her shield comes back up, and she's dealing damage to you all this time.
Right.
So
it can be pretty rough.
yeah, it's a little tricky to deal with. We increase the cooldown of her B so she does not have that level of durability all the time.
Okay.
So this is really just to address that. We did give her some power back though. We put some of the power in the burn in her ult. So when your bubble is up, it will deal a little bit less. I mean, it'll be up less, but it will deal more damage.
Right.
And then so the DPS is around the same.
All right.
And then at the same time, your ult is going to deal a bit more damage.
All right. Sounds good to me. Celeste, not much of a change here. Her Solar Storm travels a little bit faster.
Yes.
Getting those cross snipes just a little bit easier.
Yes. So it's a great change for getting these, like as you said, getting those cross map snipes. So players should not feel afraid now to throw it out. If they're in mid lane and they want to throw it up at top, right? So they snipe it out. You're much more likely to hit because of the travel speed increase. Just a nice buff.
All right, makes sense. Churnwalker though, quite a lot of changes to him.
Yeah, so he was having a bit of tough trouble.
Right. Especially because he is a fairly feast or famine hero. If you land those hooks, you're fantastic. If you don't, you're tough luck.
Yeah, and we were also having the issue, like, even when he did eventually get his hooks on, he just wasn't durable enough to survive a 5v5 fight.
Right.
So we increased the amount of healing that he gets, but we also gave him a little bit of damage and lowered the cooldown on his ult. So the damage will allow him to heal a little bit more and be a little bit stronger during laning phase. As well as, if you have multiple people hooked up and you pull, you'll heal a little bit more.
Absolutely. This does mean Churnwalker, if you do get a lot of chains onto people, you are going to be able to sustain fairly effectively, in addition to doing a good amount of damage to the enemy team.
Yes. So that's what you want to do, guys. Chain them up.
Seems good.
So,
Fortress. Small nerf, small mostly all around.
So Fortress has been a hell of a force, actually.
Yeah, he is tough to deal with.
He's very strong. His ult is one of the strongest 5v5 team fight ults I believe, currently. So we did a couple things. One, we reduced the early game power. So usually people would put 1 point into his A because the base damage on it was just so high.
Right. And
then from there, max B, because you want the overdrive for the peak, right? So what we ended up doing is we reduced its scaling over the course of the game. So he's not going to... The early game is going to hit... We want to make sure he hits still hard, but we don't want him to scale as well.
Okay.
So essentially he has more of a niche in sort of this like bit stronger early on. Once you get into later on, he just don't want you chunking quite as hard.
Right. He still does hit pretty hard. That too.
He still hits really hard. We also made the wolves a bit squishier, so AoE damage and such will hurt them a bit more.
Right. So if you're playing something like Celeste, playing Scarf, you will be able to take those wolves down just a little bit more effectively.
Exactly.
All right. Grace. Grace was a bit of a terror in 3.0.
Yeah, she was almost one-shotting carries with her weapon build. And don't get me wrong, we want to make sure that there are different possible builds, but insta-gibbing an enemy carry does not feel good.
Right.
I suppose it feels good for the person using it, but it does not feel good on the receiving end.
Absolutely.
Because it doesn't feel like there's any counterplay options, right? So we reduced the weapon ratios and such, but we did give it back in base damages, so support Grace isn't going to feel it. In fact, this is a straight-up buff for support Grace.
Okay.
Her base damage is coming up on her perk, which means her natural base damages are higher. Her base damage on her benediction, her B skill is now higher. Also her B skill is higher. Sorry, excuse me. And then finally, we did lower the weapon ratio on benediction.
All right.
Sorry, and then Holy Nova, which is the B skill god for increase. Forgive me, I like switched the skills in my head there for a second.
No worries.
Anyways,
no worries.
So, yeah, so her B is going to deal more damage. Her perk is going to deal more damage if you're support or crystal.
Right.
And then if you're weapon, you're going to find your A and perk dealing a little bit less damage.
Right. And then one of the mainstays of Gwen. This doesn't sound like a huge nerf.
So, yeah, so people have been like, I've had multiple people be like, hey, Niv, that does nothing. I'm like, hang on. So Gwen does actually fall off later on. So what's her scary part though is that early game, right? She's so dominant early on.
Absolutely. Just constantly getting those boomsticks over and over.
So to address the early on, we actually decreased her early damage especially. So if you look at it from a numbers perspective, we've decreased it from 30 to 20 at level 1. That's a 30. That's a third of it. We've chopped a third of it off in terms of damage. And then we want her to still get it back as the game scales on.
Right.
We will. Don't get me wrong. We are keeping an eye on all of these heroes. So if something is too strong, we'll still address it. But,
Absolutely.
this is. I think I prefer like bit by bit instead of just being like we should potato that hero. just
incremental changes.
Incremental changes versus nerfing something to the ground.
Unless something drastic is needed, in which case,
yes,
we're happy to do that too.
Yes.
All right, but next up we got Kestrel. She's been having a pretty rough time in the past, but these looks like some pretty solid buffs to her.
These are awesome buffs to her. I think Kestrel's going to be a real force to be reckoned with this patch.
Okay.
Her stats are increased overall, like so she's a little bit tankier. We increased the durations of all the buffs, all the stacking heroes like Alpha and Taka. Their buffs got increased because they're generally in the jungle. We wanted to make sure they can move between the different camps. Okay, in this scenario, while Kestrel is more of a laner, we didn't want to take away that option, so we did increase the amount of time her adrenaline stacks stay online.
Right.
And then obviously the ult decrease, so you could throw it out a little bit more.
Oof, that's gonna be scary.
It is scary. Just dodge.
Yep.
Just dodge.
Just dodge. Right.
If you don't get hit by it, you don't have anything to worry about.
You make it sound so easy. All right. How about Koshka? Tell me about Koshka.
So Koshka was definitely a hell of a force in 3.0. So assassins are sort of tricky because they're very feast or famine. We didn't want to take away Koshka's star power, right? We want her to still have those moments where if she does get ahead, she feels awesome because she's that early mid game hero,
right?
But we wanted to make it a little bit harder for her to reach that point.
Right.
So we reduced her early game damage, so she's not going to be as dominant early on, but will eventually, the damage decrease wasn't that bad as the game progresses. You're only going to really feel it early on, and the energy increase cost is going to make her give her a little bit less sustain in the jungle because she may need to go back now.
Right. So the energy cost is actually pretty substantial, even though it doesn't seem like too much. Being forced to buy either an energy battery early on or just feel use your abilities less is actually pretty substantial.
Definitely so.
All right, so Cruel
was ganking a little bit too well.
He was pretty good at it, just hopping out bushes left and right.
Yeah, so like once it comes to the teamfight phase, Cruel's sort of like he's durable enough to sort of hold his own, but if focused down, he'll drop. Right. The thing with Cruel is he's really good in 1v1. He's not really good once multiple people are included.
Okay.
So for one, we wanted to take away that ganking potential not take it away completely, but tune it down a little. So we brought that move speed down from 2.5 to 2.2 back to sort of where it was, and then we've also reduced the amount of time he's in this empowered state. So he can't, because you now can slow them as long as you're in your empowered state, that means you're slowing them for less time.
Right. And that's pretty important because one of the big things Cruel is good at is just camping those bushes. If someone walks close, they are probably going to have a very rough time.
Yeah, they could be in trouble.
How about Lance? Lance has had his ups and downs. He's pretty tough to play correctly, and he's very reliant on landing those abilities.
Very much.
So if you do get those impales now, it's just a little bit more rewarding. That being said, you'll have them up more often.
Exactly. So we wanted to make sure that the skillful part of Lance's kit really were there. We didn't want to with Githyan Wall.
It's pretty hard to miss Githyan Wall.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very big cone in front of you. But in the situation of Impale, it's a little bit more skillful. Like it's easier to dodge. So when you land it, you need to feel more rewarded. So the damage is up on it, and the cooldown is lower. Coupled with the buffs that we gave in the past, I think it's going to be really awesome.
Good.
We also gave him some of his damage back on his combat roll, so he'll probably hurt a little bit more during the fight. And this sort of goes back into, like, you know, the support's dealing a bit more damage across the board. And considering supports who have been sort of having a tough time, Lyra's a really good example.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Lyra we had to tune down. We weren't quite sure in the direction we wanted to push her when 2.12, 3.0 came out. And so we finally found a place where, like, okay, I think this is the right direction to go. We tested out multiple different forms. And so what we did, we tanked her up a bit.
Okay.
We made her heal scale a little bit better. So it's not crazy, but late game you're going to feel a little bit more healing. But we've also increased the damage on her B and A, so if she uses them aggressively and well, she can actually deal like a nice chunk. And then most of all, we fixed that bug on her where if you ran into the wall, you were not slowed. that
Not
was
great.
Yeah, so especially with the change, we're like, we want this to be like a big AoE slow thing that's going to be really strong, and it only worked if you were right next to her when she used it.
Right.
So
It's not really the goal of it.
Yeah, so now this is a really strong kiting tool. You come into a fight, you can drop it down. People are like, oh, but you can, you know, just walk into it. You can walk into it, but you're going to be slowed by 30% if you walk into it.
You'll have a very, very rough time if you
Yeah,
walk into
and
it.
it stays down 4 seconds right now, so it's very strong.
That does. All right, let's talk about Finn. So, favorite river troll, getting a little bit more move speed.
I think this may be one of the biggest underrated characters in 5v5.
Ooh.
I think he's awesome, and I think that even now he's even more awesome. And so he can move a little bit faster between the lanes now with his 2.9 to 3.0 movement speed buff, but his B also does more damage. This is going to mean he deals a bit more damage. Like, it's not a crazy increase, but in the sense of if you're hitting multiple people with it, it's actually one of the more bigger damage buffs we're giving out this map.
Right, and especially because you don't really have to aim that one, just being able to be in the middle of the enemy team and just constantly using light company is actually extremely effective now.
Exactly.
Alright, so Rona, the cooldown increase on her ultimate doesn't seem huge, but it's a 2-second increase.
That's pretty substantial. That means if you stun Rona out of her ult, it's down for 8 seconds.
Right.
That's a long time. That means that she now has to rely on her A, B, and auto attacks to really put out her damage, which means she's not going to be as durable because she's not generating that fortified life. She's not dealing AoE damage, and which means she's also not healing off of her red mist as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We also did reduce the amount of fortified life she does generate during red mist, though, so she is going to be less durable. Samuel was super strong. He was great.
Samuel's awesome.
It was great.
I got no problems here.
Yeah, so see, Zekent was actually a Samuel player, for all you guys know.
Was I?
Was I? Were you?
I don't know. Why don't you tell me?
Okay, so we did reduce the CP ratios on his A, both the empowered and non-empowered version, but most importantly, we reduced the amount he heals early on from his perk. That was just giving him a little bit too much sustain in lane. You could not push him out, and you could just trade a little bit too well.
Right, right.
So this change is really going to help him keep that, keep some damage on him.
Absolutely. All right, so Saw in 3.0 was a bit of a pushing menace.
Saw push everything.
He pushed down heroes, he pushed down turrets, he pushed down everything.
Ghost Wing, Black Claw, he pushed it down. So we did take away the reduction that he has from his perk that we gave him. We're like, we wanted to try it out. Proved it was just, he was moving a little bit too fast.
No kidding.
We pulled it back. And then from there, we also decreased the base weapon power increase at later levels.
Right.
So he's still going to be really strong early on, but you're going to find he falls off a little bit more late game.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, Vox. So, this is one of the tricky ones. Everyone thinks this is a nerf. It really is not.
It's a nerf buff. Sort of.
People say that, so I'm going to address this one. So, his perk was dropped from 55% CP ratio to 50, right?
Right.
And the weapon ratio was dropped by 10% at all levels.
Right.
But we added the crystal damage back on, like it wasn't doing the crystal damage on the 2 bolts, right? So you were losing like 44 to 80 damage. You needed to do like 20 auto attacks to really get the same CP ratio that you would have gotten from your
So
perk.
Basically what you're telling me is,
It's
as long as
buff.
you land resonance, you're good. If you don't land the resonance,
Yes.
I'm sorry, it is totally a nerf
As
for you.
long as you're using the Sonic Zoom and getting the bolts from your Sonic Zoom, this is, for the most part, a buff.
Basically,
It's not
use
a
your
nerf.
abilities.
Yes. As long as you're Sonic Zooming, this is just feels awesome. Feels good.
All right, seems good.
Okay.
Tell me about some items. Aegis, Metal Jacket, a little bit of price decreases there.
Okay, so we lowered the stats that they give because fights were just lasting a bit too long, right? But this also meant that early on that people were just blowing up a little bit too fast. So to sort of create this, make it so like fights do close out, let's sort of be a little bit clever in the same way. We lowered the price of it, which means you'll be able to complete these items earlier, which means they are more effective early on because you have them earlier, right? And then as the fight progresses, it will sort of close out, or as the game progresses, it will start to close out more because the effectiveness returns back to where it was.
Right, and speaking of closing out the game, this game looks like it's about to come to a close. So congratulations to the right team, Jujulos, Smuggle Nugs, Sushi Fox, Above Underscore, and Gabriel VZ. Congratulations for winning that
Can
game.
you bring me Sushi Fox?
But, if only. But in any case, just a couple more changes
yeah,
to talk
have
about.
a few more. So we have Book of Eulogies was healing a little bit too much, so for melee heroes.
Right.
So we reduced that down so they're a little bit easier to push out of lane.
Okay.
Tension Bow was a bit too strong, early on especially, so we reduced it by 10. We were seeing a lot of like this Gwen Tension Bow combination especially. We're seeing on Grump Jaws. So by lowering the power that we gave it from 60 to 10, we essentially shaved off a lot of that early game strength. And then finally, with Tornado Trigger and Tyrant's Monocle's base stat decreases, we essentially made, because of everyone having lower armor, crit was just blowing people up a little bit too fast. And to have consistent burst damage is, instead of, either consistent damage or burst damage, was sort of...
Kind of a mix of both.
Yeah, exactly. So with
Best of both worlds.
With this, we're moving crit, be more consistent. It's not going to blow up that person, though, like, like confetti.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good. All right, looks like the game has ended. Nivmet's done talking about all of these update changes. So we do have Surprise Birthday waiting out in the wings, so let's bring him on.
You wanna?
You're taking over.
Please.
All right, so he'll be here in just a moment. Nivmet's hopping off, and in the meantime, I'm just gonna be sitting here, looking at you guys in the camera. You got Surprise Birthday.
Hey guys.
So, Surprise Birthday. First off, tell us who you are. Number one, first up.
So it doesn't get caught on things. Put over.
It's all good.
Okay.
No worries.
You got it. Okay. Good luck, guys.
All right.
All right, tell us who you are.
Hey guys, I'm Surprise Birthday. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Super Evil Megacorp. So if you look at the game, you divide it into the in-game and also the app and all the systems outside of it. Captain Nito looks at the game, and I look at the app and the systems.
Right. So you're here for a very specific reason.
Yes. Yes.
So this past week or so, matchmaking has been a little bit questionable.
That's right.
You mind telling me a little bit about what went wrong this weekend?
Yeah, so we actually had a bunch of issues with matchmaking and ranked and ELO and VST and that whole system of defining how good players are, showing people how good you are, and then matchmaking based on that.
Right.
And like 3.1 did not go out well. It's below our standards. You guys deserve way better, and we are sorry for that. That did not go well. So I'm here to talk about some of the things that we did, some of the changes that we made over this weekend and also yesterday, and basically answer a bunch of questions that we've been seeing repeatedly come up from customer support primarily, our first channel for what people are asking about, but also Facebook, Twitter, Reddit. Some common questions have come up.
Absolutely, absolutely. So just to kick things off, so you're talking about VST, ELO, MMR, all this stuff. What is all this stuff? What is VST? What's MMR? How is it calculated? Like, what is it?
Yeah, sure. So actually, the most important number for anyone is their ELO.
Right.
The ELO is a system borrowed over from chess to measure how good players are based on recording a long history of wins and losses from one player to the next.
Right.
So that is the most important number. MMR is actually a colloquialism. It's used in exchange with ELO a lot, but MMR is actually just a temporary number that we generate in certain situations, like when you are in a party.
Right.
So when you're in a party, we don't want to just take everyone's average. Sometimes when you're in a party, some people would form a party where one person's really, really good, and then one person's actually really, really low ELO. He's actually a really good player playing on a Smurf. So we would say actually for this party, we think that all 3 players are probably really good, and the third person is just pretending.
Right.
So MMR is just a word for an adjusted elo that we use only during matchmaking, but it's never recorded in your account. So you don't have an MMR, you have an elo.
Okay.
When you're in the matchmaker might calculate an MMR just for that one session for other adjustments that we might make.
Okay, so what you're telling me is based on my past performance, who I'm playing with, all that stuff, my MMR, what the matchmaker views me as, is actually not the same number as either what's displayed in game or my actual true skill elo.
Yeah. So your elo is in the background. Elo is actually working in all game modes. It's in casual, it's in ranked. It has to be even in game modes like casual because the players are actually the skill difference is so large that people cannot have fun with each other if we just didn't use elo for even casual matchmaking. So it is everywhere in the game. The difference is that in ranked in casual we hide your elo. In ranked we show you this thing called visual skill tier or VST.
Right.
Or I call it I just call it skill tier really.
Okay.
So the difference is that your rank is actually soft reset every season.
Right.
So it is oftentimes lower than your elo every season, and that's because we think that every season you should have to reprove to
maybe stop playing for a while.
And other players, because the meta is shifting, you should have to reprove that you are good at this game.
All right.
But we don't drop you to 0 because because it simply isn't true.
Right. So that's actually something very big that's come up. We had the rank system come out in 3.1. Why didn't we drop everyone to 0?
Okay. So let's first talk about why we didn't set everyone's elo to 0, and then we'll talk about why we didn't set everyone's skill tier to 0 or 1. So by 0 I mean actually 1200. Everyone starts at 1200, so you can think of that as 0 if you'd like.
All right.
But or the beginning, the center. So everyone starts at 1200. From an elo perspective, we cannot put everyone at the middle because it would result in good players crushing noobs for like 2 to 3 weeks straight before
Not
things
ideal, I imagine.
sort themselves out.
Right.
Yeah, and the other thing is it's actually during early access we can actually directly measure how much does your skill in 3v3 count towards 5v5.
Right.
And what we found is it's basically 1-to-1. Like if you're a 2000 plus elo player in 3v3, those players during early access are going to climb, and they did climb up to 2000 plus.
Right.
So everyone's 5v5 early access elo looked a lot like their real 3v3 ranked elo. So that tells us that as different as it is,
pretty effectively.
it translates over incredibly well.
Right.
So we know that if you're really good at 3v3, you are absolutely going to crush new players, and that's going to be a terrible experience for the new players. It's going to be a terrible experience for the okay player who has to be paired up with a new player who's facing up against you because the matchmaker sees everyone as 1200 and is just matching people.
All right, fair enough. So, given that we aren't starting people at 0, how are we deciding to seed them?
Yeah, so one more thing. So we don't start your elo. So we do transfer your elo over. The reason we also didn't start your skill tier at 0 is because if let's say you're actually 2000 elo and we started your skill tier at 0, you're going to climb super fast. And what's going to happen is your buddies, let's say who started playing a week after you've climbed up so fast that you can't play with them anymore.
Right.
Because of the party span, which I'll also talk about in a little bit why that exists and also the changes we made.
Okay.
Yeah.
So before we hop into that, then you can tell me a little about. We had the rank system. We we allow parties of 1, 2, 3, or 5 people.
Yeah.
So why not 4?
Yeah. So that's 4-person parties are allowed in casual, but they're not allowed in ranked. And this is just an experience. Actually, well, we haven't been 5v5, but we've seen this occur over and over again with other 5v5 MOBAs, especially on PC. It's a pretty toxic experience.
Right.
With 4 people, the 4-man party can basically dictate a surrender. For example, unilaterally, and oftentimes the last person, like it's really rough being that one person singled out. You don't have a say in surrender really, and oftentimes you feel very discoordinated from the rest of the team in terms of what they're doing, and it's generally a very frustrating experience. And we think that if it's true in other MOBAs, it's probably going to be true here too. So we decided to just go ahead and disable that because it's pretty bad.
All right, sounds good to me. Sounds good to me. So we've made a bunch of changes already, but first off, let's talk about the party span. You mentioned that we originally had you can party with people 1 skill tier away from you, and we have made some changes to that. So what are those adjustments, and why did we make them?
Yeah, so the party span is currently set to, it used to be 1 tier for forever. We have just yesterday made it 2 tiers. So if you're tier 6 gold, you can party with someone as low as tier 4 gold.
Okay.
Now, originally it was set to 1 tier. It's set to 2 tiers right now because 5v5 is new, and a lot of people didn't get seeded into the rank that they expected. In
Right.
fact, a lot of people were very close to each other in 3v3, find themselves a little bit further apart. So we want to make sure that people can play together right now. It's a temporary change. We may revert it back to 1 once everything shakes out, because as you can imagine, there is a problem with a tier 4 and a tier 6 being in a party together.
Right.
Because you're going to face opponents of closer to tier 6. Just because when parties like this form, we're always wary of the tier 4 actually being a tier 6 player smurfing on a tier 4.
All right.
So any kind of span creates matchmaking and experience problems. Also, your teammates might be frustrated, right? If you're 6 and a 4, you're gonna have 3 other strangers match with you. They might be a little bit frustrated with the tier 4
All right. I think that makes a lot of sense.
that's on their team.
So you mentioned we did make some changes yesterday. What other changes have we made?
Yeah, so actually we made a whole bunch of changes. So first of all, we fixed an issue with early access players who were actually quite good at the game, not placing into only tier 4
Oh, okay.
in skill tier visually. Their back-end elo was still correct, but they were placed into tier 4, even though they ought to deserve to be placed into tier 8, even at accounting for the fact that we drop your skill tier every season a little bit. So we have fixed that one. And this is a big issue because it caused basically the appearance of, it caused really, really good players to basically be matched into low tier.
Okay, got it.
We also fixed probably the scariest problem, which is if you lose the game, you drop 100 points first. And then later we found another issue where if you lose a game, you were dropping 40 points, which is unusual. Like
Right.
that should be extremely unlikely, but that was happening a lot more than it should have been. So we actually, right now, we're confident we have fixed all the cases where you drop an exorbitant amount of points.
Okay.
If you are very, very new to the game, you should be plus minusing about 20. If you're very, very high tier, it goes down to like plus minus 10 and then sometimes plus minus 5, but 40 is a very extreme number that should not happen.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good.
So-
Are there? Well,
Yeah,
sorry.
so we set the party span to 2 tiers for now. We're still monitoring that to make sure that doesn't cause any major problems.
All right.
But do know that if you are partying with people and you have a wide spread, so if you're tier 6 match with some tier 4s, the matchmaker is going to think you're closer to tier 6 than the average of 6 and 4. So we're not going to treat you as a 5. We're going to treat you as something close to 6
Okay.
if you do that.
Right. So if you do party up with people who are greatly below your tier or
Yeah.
higher than you,
Yep.
then we'll take the highest into account.
Not the highest, but something close to the highest.
Okay, got
Yeah.
it, got it.
We also found an issue where Matchmaker was actually just unnecessarily holding people in the queue longer than we should. So it is faster now.
Okay.
Not by a huge amount, but it is faster now. Another thing is separate of Elo and Matchmaking, the 3.1 client itself has some crashes
Okay.
and disconnects that would cause, if you didn't experience them because you have a high-end phone or you got lucky, then it would still affect your allies or enemies, causing unnecessary AFKs.
Right.
So if you are having those problems, actually I think so do update to 3.1.1.
Okay.
That update I think is now mandatory. But if you haven't done it, you need it to play the game now, and that solves a lot of the crashing. We have one last remaining issue that is unfixed, but it's not super high priority because it's not ruining the game for anyone. Is
Okay.
some players in early access early on are able to walk out somehow with like 5,000 elo,
Whoa.
which is
Okay.
ridiculous because like the highest ever known was Druid hitting 3,000.
Right.
So that's clearly wrong. But it's not. To do that, you already have to have been very good in the first
Right.
place. Like you have to have climb above 2,000, maybe even 2,400. But we were just giving you way too much.
Okay.
So there are no bad players getting 5,000. Vainglorious gold. 5,000.
Interesting. Okay. That's a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
That being said, is there any last words you have for the community here?
Yeah. So one more thing I wanted to talk about was how we did the elo seeding.
Okay, yeah.
Actually.
I feel like that's pretty important because a lot of people get placed into places where they don't quite expect to, or higher or lower.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the questions is like why. So I answered why we didn't start at 0 because your skill in other game modes actually transfer quite well.
Right.
even then, we actually transferred less than 1-to-1 from your other game modes. So
Okay.
even though we found that 3v3 ranked elo like pretty much it was 1-to-1 correlation, the way we did it is if starting center is 1200, we only look at the difference from 1200. So how much you gained and lost since you started at 1200. And let's say that means let's say you're 1600. It means you've gained 400.
Right.
So let's say you're 1600 in 3v3 ranked. We said that we're going to take 80% of what you've gained or lost and migrate that over.
Okay.
Or if you've played a bunch of 5v5 casual, we'll take 70% of what you've gained and lost and migrate that over. So, and then 60% of 3v3 casual, and then for blitz and battle royale, only 40% of it matters. So it only has basically we think it only has a 0.4 correlation
Right.
to your actual 5v5 skill. So 3v3 ranked is 0.8, 5v5 casual is 0.7, 3v3 casual is 0.6, and then the other modes are 0.4.
So would you be taking the highest value, or
Yeah,
would
yeah.
it be okay?
We calculate each one, and we say which one gives us the highest number. We'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Whichever
Cool.
one's the highest, that would be your 5v5
All right.
ranked elo. So that's how we did that. So there's basically a gradient of like how close do we think this game mode feels like 5v5, and how correlated is it? So if someone's high here, are they also going to be high during early access?
Right.
So that's how we did that.
Cool.
Yep.
Makes sense to me.
Yep.
And as always, if you have any issues or you run into any problems, be sure to let our customer support know.
Yep.
Just send us an email, send us a message, and we will try to take care of it as quickly as possible. We know there's probably a couple things out there that are still needing to be fixed, but we're working on it.
Yeah,
So thank you, Survivors Birthday, for coming on.
Thank you, and I hope you guys enjoyed draft.
All right.
All right, thanks
Go
guys.
have fun out there. Have a good one.
That's how we do it.